Today I'm so excited to share with you some of my favorite books for reading during the fall. And these are clean reads, closed door, whatever you refer to them as. They're wonderful family-friendly stories. And I'm also sharing movie tie-ins or miniseries tie-ins or TV shows that correspond with these books. Everything's perfect for the fall, and we're going to have a lot of fun, so let's get started. Hi, sweet friends. If we're meeting for the first time, I'm Mary from marysnest.com, an author of the Modern Pioneer Cookbook and the Modern Pioneer Pantry, and I'd like to welcome you to my kitchen. In the past, when I've shared with you some of the books that I like to read, you often will ask me, "Oh, Mary, do you have more lists? Can you share more?" And so I thought that I would start a series that would span the seasons. And we're going to start here now in the fall, where I share with you some of the books that I like to read during the different seasons. And then I also wanted to share with you, because I actually do love movies and miniseries and TV and all of that, I will also share with you the tie-ins with these books that I often enjoy watching. And these are usually older movies or older miniseries or older TV shows, because something that I know many of us have talked about is so much of what we see today is very harsh or coarse. The books, sometimes the language and the voyeurism, I don't like that. I don't think it's appropriate. I know that you've shared with me, you often feel the same way. And even with a lot of the modern day movies, TV shows, miniseries, whatever the case may be, those sometimes too they're not always family friendly. And sometimes I just find they're disturbing. Like last night, Ted and I were watching coming attractions for different movies. You know, sometimes they have that on YouTube. They'll show all the coming attractions for the fall, and then going into the new year, what are the movies that are going to be coming out? And we literally had to fast forward through so many, because there were a lot of horror films and starting to show what appeared to be very disturbing scenes. And I just do like this with my eyes, and Ted'll fast forward. But I enjoy the movies and I enjoy miniseries, and so I wanted to share with you the books. I don't know if you can see this one, I got another stack here, so I got a good selection to share with you of books that I enjoy, and I'm pretty sure all of them, maybe except one. There's one book I have not read, but I just wanted to share it with you, and it's actually a modern book, but I think that it's going to be an okay kind of book. But these all are books that I've read, stories I'm familiar with, and movies and miniseries that I'm familiar with, and so I feel very comfortable recommending these to you. Now, I just want to add one caveat. Some of older stories, could be, I'm not talking about any today from the Bronte sisters, but if you're familiar with those Gothic romance books and movies, the movies were made in the 1940s and whatnot. There are modern versions, but I like the old ones, some of the old ones the best. But I do want to just say that sometimes they're mature themes, that may not be appropriate for elementary school children if you're sharing the books and TVs, shows or movies, whatever the case may be. But I feel pretty much everything is fine, once people are in high school. I have a video, which I'll link to in the description below, where I talked about a lot of the books that I did as read-alouds to Benjamin when he was young and when we were homeschooling from 1st through 8th grade. And I'll also, going forward in the future, as we do these seasonal readings, and I actually have one book today that is for young children, and so I'll share that. But as we go forward in this series, throughout the seasons, I will share some books that are especially nice for young children. Alrighty, well, let's get started. You know me, if you've been with me a while, I can go down rabbit trails, as they say, or rabbit holes, whatever the expression is, when I get to talking. But I want to mention something, if you like to read. Oh yeah, I want to tell you that all of this information will be in a list. All of the books we're going to talk about, the movies, everything, will be in a blog post over on my website, and that's marysnest.com. And I'll also link to that in the description below so you can print out the whole list, have it on your phone, whatever. I also want to mention all the books I'm going to share with you today have all pretty much been purchased. I'm pretty sure everything I have here was purchased used. That's the nice thing often when you read some of the older books. You can find them at used bookstores or online, wherever used books are sold. And I think that I really often never paid more than a few dollars for most of them. So keep your eyes open. Here in Austin and many states have half-price books. We've shopped there. We also like, as I've shared with you, our beloved Recycled Reads, but it's closing. That's part of the Austin Public Library system, where they have a lot of, discards and whatnot, but in good condition, and people make donations too. And those books are very reasonable, often $1 or $2. But in any event, what I did want to share was that this, if you saw me holding this up in the thumbnail, this is just a notebook. And I really like to keep a notebook handy where I write down the book that I read, what I thought of it, did I like it, did I not like it. And this way I kind of always sort of have, what would you say, like a running list of what I'm reading, but I also include what I'm watching. And sometimes, Ted and I laugh, we'll watch a movie that maybe we saw 20 years ago, and we don't even remember it. And so it's kind of nice to revisit the lists and look and say, oh yeah, we really liked that movie, let's watch it again, So I highly recommend any kind of notebook. I liked this one. I found this talking about half-price books because these are just made-up books, but it's all about things that girls and women would like. It's like The Courageous Lady and things like that. They have made-up titles. It's very cute. Then I also want to mention is something that I have found as I'm getting older. I'm also an extremely slow reader. As you know, our son Benjamin has very severe dyslexia. That's how we came to homeschool 1st through 8th grade. But I myself am a very slow reader. And as I get older and I wear bifocals, reading can be a little more, strenuous on my eyes. 70 is just around the corner for me. So, but what I have really enjoyed was Ted got me a subscription to Audible. My gosh, it's fantastic. And I have really enjoyed, I just listened to a book by Jude Deveraux, and it's funny. I wasn't a super fan of it, but I was glad that I listened to it and didn't read it, because it would have taken me a long time to read. And it was funny because I learned, talking about Audible, but another thing I want to share with you is go to Goodreads too, and it can be very helpful there to read reviews before you read a book. And people were saying the book that I read by Jude Deveraux was more of a modern book, and people were saying, oh, only read her stuff from the 1980s. That's what they were saying on Goodreads. But I like that. And also too, if people are going to give a spoiler, they alert you. But that's a good place too, and they have like little, I'm over on Goodreads too, you can find me over there, because you can friend people and things like that. They have like little different book groups, like if you like clean reads or closed door reads. And when I say that, what I'm talking about is clean reads, no vulgarity. Closed door, the romances are handled very lovingly and kind and gentle. It's not voyeuristic in any fashion. But Audible, I'll also put a link in the description below because I have a discount coupon code for you if you ever want to try that out. But I've been very happy with it. I like it very much. Alrighty, let's talk about books. I've got my list here. I've also got my iPad here so I don't forget anything. Now, some of these books, I know where today is Saturday, November 1st. All Saints Day. Happy All Saints Day. I had hoped to actually share some of this in October, but as you know, I've been, or maybe you don't know, but my new book, The Modern Pioneer Pantry, which came out in August, I've been on my book tour, and so I've been away from home a lot. And but I'm finally home and happy to get back to filming some nice videos for you. I had hoped to get a little bit more of this to you in October because we're going to talk about some like Gothic romance, which you know, I don't go for a lot of the, like we said, like the disturbing or scary, you know, Halloween stuff. I don't like that. But I feel that as you get into the little cooler weather and it's a little crisp and it's a kind of a fun time to read the Gothic romances. And so I was going to share that a little earlier, but these are fine for November too. And some of the things that I wanted to talk to you about, or I'm going to just bring these over. These are great, I think, for the fall. Some I have a feeling you'll probably be familiar with. Maybe you've even read them in the past, but also too, they're always fun to revisit. And the first one I want to mention to you is if you like Jane Austen, this time of year is a great time to read Northanger Abbey. And you know what? I've always just said it as Northanger Abbey. I don't know if in Great Britain it's pronounced differently, but you have to let me know in the comments below. But this is, and this was, I think, just, I've had these books a long time. I have the whole set, the whole Jane Austen set. Yeah, these are Barnes & Noble's classics. They were just printed by Barnes & Noble's, but I see these, this particular series, all the time at Half Price Books. And they're usually very affordable. And the print size is pretty good too, which I like. Some of the reprints of the Jane Austen books, you know, they can make them very cute and sometimes they're small, but the print is like practically microscopic. But this is I'll read a little bit of the, I think they've got it on the back here. What I'll do is I don't want to give any, like, especially if you're coming new to these stories, from writers like Jane Austen and the Bronte sisters and Daphne du Maurier, you know, the real classic, Jane Austen being a little more light-hearted, and Daphne du Maurier and the Bronte sisters being a little more, you know, a little more Gothic in nature. But I don't want to give away too much in case you are coming to all of this very new. But on the back, this was actually taken from the introduction, and it says, Catherine Morland, a quixotic young woman who sees things through the distorting lens of the Gothic novel, must grow out of that illusion. In doing so, she follows the trajectory typical of all true novels. She moves from innocence to experience. Catherine must change. She must react to life and become, by the end of her story, another person. But this is a good read, and I think you're going to enjoy it. But I want to tell you which, you know, a lot of these Jane Austen films, everybody, I think, if you like Jane Austen, everybody has their own thoughts on which movie or miniseries they like the best. But what I will share with you is the one that I've listed. When you go over to my website, you're going to see that I listed the ones that I was either aware of, or the ones that I liked, or others that I might know of. But I'll be telling you here which ones I like the best if I'm giving you multiple choices. But for the review, you know, kind of like that I took offline, it says, for Northanger Abbey, a witty, autumn-perfect tale where romance meets Gothic parody. And that's kind of what it is. I hope what I read to you on the back made that clear. The character is a lovely, innocent girl, and she is taken in, with these Gothic romance novels, and she is on a holiday, and she makes she kind of turns her holiday into a bit of a Gothic romance, in essence, and it's very good, But it's got that kind of fall, little spooky, theme to it, which makes it kind of fun for this time of year. But it says, a witty autumn perfect tale where romance meets Gothic parody, playful, charming, and delightfully atmospheric. And the one that I like, it's actually newer and made in the 2000s. It was made in 2007 with Felicity Jones and J.J. Field. And I believe this was made for TV, like a TV movie. And where can you find these? Oh my gosh. So many of the TV shows and movies we'll talk about, I found them on YouTube. I found them on different streaming services. Roku, if you have that set up in your house, will often have a lot of these. Again, I have very few. There's only one that's a little more modern than others, but overall, a lot of times you can find these on YouTube, and if you don't mind the little interruption occasionally, it's like watching it on TV, like a commercial, the ads, you're fine. I know some people subscribe to, what is it called, YouTube Red? I think. I don't have it. And then you can watch things commercial free. But I think for the most part, these are all pretty easy to find. Now, I'm going to tell you about these two books actually together. One, because these are both very much Gothic romance. One is Jamaica Inn by Daphne du Maurier, and the other is The Woman in White by Wilkie Collins. Now, let's talk about The Woman in White. This is very much a Gothic novel. And if you're not familiar with Wilkie Collins, he is a contemporary of Charles Dickens. And if you've read Charles Dickens, you know that he often wrote about the conditions and circumstances of life growing up, in Great Britain, London, and what exactly was going on at the time in history when he was writing. And sometimes, the subjects are serious. That's why I said that, some of these aren't necessarily books you're going to be reading aloud to children. They're serious in nature. They have mature topics. But I like, Charles Dickens he's one of my favorites. I love especially at Christmas time, which we'll talk about when I share with you the books I like to read at Christmas time. I love A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. I love anything that has like a redemptive theme. I really enjoy. But Wilkie Collins this is a man, Wilkie Collins, and he writes specifically in The Woman in White about a lot of the challenges that women faced in the 1800s, and even into the 1900s, early 1700s. He discusses it in a serious manner as to many of the challenges that they had to deal with, and that's what he addresses in The Woman in White. Struggles maybe where a marriage was arranged, and maybe there's a nefarious husband or character, and what happens and whatnot. And these are all usually like people of means, not necessarily royalty, but maybe even nobility. But then there's some, unscrupulous characters involved, and he writes it in a very interesting way. And it gives you a real snapshot into some of the struggles that some women had to deal with. And so I find that very interesting. And I think that if you like Charles Dickens, you'll like Wilkie Collins. And then the same if you like Gothic romance, like the Bronte sisters, and if you liked Rebecca, if you read Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier, you'll like Jamaica Inn also. I will tell you that I actually am going to tell you about the movies and TV shows I like. I might have been a made-for-TV movie, and it was with, oh gosh, who's the actress who plays? I'll have it here. She played Dr. Quinn, Medicine Woman, and it's funny. It's my favorite version of Jamaica Inn. But oh, you know what I do? I don't have the book handy. I'm just looking at my list here, talking about Gothic novels. I do have Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. You can never go wrong. If you like Gothic romance, the Bronte sisters are amazing. And I'll just share with you, and then we'll get to the ones for Jamaica Inn and The Woman in White. But if you like the Bronte sisters, if you read them or you want to read them, Jane Eyre, my favorite movie is 1943, Joan Fontaine and Orson Welles. I mean, there have been remakes and whatnot, but and there's BBC miniseries. I always think the BBC does a good job with a lot of this, but I do love that 1943 movie. In any event, let me see if I have. Oh yeah, okay, Jamaica Inn. This is what I was telling you. There are a lot of movies, but my favorite is the 1983 Jane Seymour. That's the woman who played Dr. Quinn, Medicine Woman. Jane Seymour TV movie. That's very good. The BBC did a miniseries in 2014. I have not seen that one. But also, too, if you like the old movies, and it is good, the 1939 version of Jamaica Inn with Charles Laughton and Maureen O'Hara. That's very good also. I love Maureen O'Hara. She's a wonderful actress. But it's something about the atmosphere of, and it's interesting because what I have here is Daphne du Maurier, Jamaica Inn, Smuggler's Secrets and the Wild Moors, classic Gothic suspense. But it's something about the way the 1983 TV movie with Jane Seymour is filmed. It's wonderful, and when it's cold or rainy out, a movie like that is just great to watch. And then for Wilkie Collins, The Woman in White, twisting plots, and it is twisting plots, mistaken identities, and Gothic suspense, as I shared with you from one of Dickens, here's my notes here, from one of Dickens' contemporaries. There is a BBC miniseries. I have not seen it, and I don't know, 2018, that's relatively recently made, and the only thing I worry is sometimes, you know, The Woman in White has some very serious themes to it. And one thing I worry about is when these books, these classic books, are made into movies today or miniseries today, whereas in the book and the earlier movies, they don't dig down like so deep or make it disturbing or anything like that. They leave a lot to the imagination. I like that. And they allude to things and they allude to what's going on. There's a little bit of mystery. I like that. I don't like it all made extremely obvious and then sometimes disturbing, because that's sometimes I find modern movies and TVs that are Gothic can be turned into disturbing stories, and that's not what they are. And so I'm just telling you that I do list these things for you, the modern versions, but just try to read reviews and see what your thoughts are, before diving in. But what I will say is the 1948 movie of The Woman in White with Gig Young and Eleanor Parker is excellent. And I'll tell you why I like it. Sometimes, a lot of times people say, oh, the book is better than the movie. Sometimes I find the movie is better than the book. And I love the ending of the 1948 movie as opposed to the ending of the real book, of the real story. So that's kind of nice too, because if you've read the book and then you watch the movie or vice versa, you get two stories in essence. So that's something to think about. Alrighty, so we've got Jane Austen, we've got Daphne du Maurier, we've got Wilkie Collins, we've got some real classics. Now we're going to move into something a little more modern. And this again, I'd put this sort of gothic, but I will tell you something funny. My friend and neighbor, our children grew up together. And when this came on, and our sons were not interested in watching this, but she would be watching it at her house, I'd be watching it at my house. And it was a BBC miniseries. And we would get together and then talk about it. And she'd say, were you yelling at the television? And I said, yes, I was yelling at the television. Because we would sometimes get mad with the main character. But if you have not checked out this series, Poldark, the Poldark series by Winston Graham. Now, these were written a while back, but the BBC turned this into a miniseries, and it was, it says as seen on Masterpiece on PBS. That was here in the United States, but I think this is a BBC miniseries. I'll have to check. But these are great. Again, it's mature themes, so, but I enjoyed the miniseries very much, and I'm just going to see, what did I write? Oh, here, okay. Winston Graham, Poldark. Sweeping Cornish landscapes, yeah, it really is. Stormy seas and passionate drama, more brooding. Like du Maurier's Cornwall in Jamaica Inn. Yes, I think that's why I like it, because I like Jamaica Inn. And the series ran, yes, it was a BBC series. And that actor, that's the actor who's on the, this is a more modern copy of the book. His name is Aidan Turner. And this is a little more PG mature. So I'll just give you a heads up on that. The language is fine, but some of the themes, PG mature, just a heads up on that. But the series ran from 2015 to 2019, and I really enjoyed it. So if you're looking now, this is a series. There are so many books in this series. If you like Outlander by Diana Gabaldon, you're going to find that this is a similar situation. There are a lot of books that go into this series. I have not read them all. And they seem to get thicker and thicker and thicker as each book goes on. So, but the series that goes along with this is very good. Alrighty, now this is the reason why I was saying that I had hoped to get this out to you in October. But something that I want to talk about, and I have a recommendation in terms of movies and TV for both adults and kids regarding this. But in early October, is the feast day for I know him as Saint Francis of Assisi. I'm Catholic, and but some of you may just know him as Francis or Francis of Assisi, and he was a fascinating man, and he is the patron saint of animals, among other things. But the exposure that I have to St. Francis is as the patron saint of animals. I love animals, and I get the tags from my dogs that have the like little St. Francis medals, and it says "Protect my pet," and I love it. And but this book, The Little Flowers of St. Francis of Assisi, is very interesting, and and again, I've had this a while. And it's just his writings that you can just take in small little chunks. It's not like a full book that you have to read. But I highly recommend this. If you are familiar with St. Francis, if you enjoy thinking about him, watching over your pet, whatever the case may be. But this one's called The Little Flowers of St. Francis of Assisi. And so I highly recommend this. This is a good fall to enjoy, especially if you get it in early October around his feast day. But it says, gentle stories of Francis's humility, love for creation, and devotion to God. Very nice. And in 1961, they made a movie where Bradford Dillman and Dolores Hart star. And it says reverent, I wrote reverent and beautifully old-fashioned. It's a pretty good movie. Interestingly enough, if you know anything about Dolores Hart, she went on to actually leave Hollywood and become a Catholic nun. She has her own very interesting story, and I think they may have made a movie about her. I'll have to look into that. But also for children, this is a video that my son Benjamin always really enjoyed. It's Francis, the Knight of Assisi, and this was made in 2014. And it's by the CCC of America. It's animated, family-friendly version for younger viewers. And some of these you can find on YouTube. I don't think I've ever seen them on a streaming service. They usually have this CCC of America that makes these. I had it on a video. I think I had it on, I didn't even have a DVD. It was so old, so long ago. I think it was VHS. And, but I think they sell the DVDs, and they may have a streaming service. But you can look into that, and they have a whole line of all kinds of wonderful stories about various saints and various people in history who played very significant roles. I can't say enough about their videos. They're just wonderful. So that's something to think about. I don't know if you bring you see a lot in early October on the feast day of St. Francis that a lot of the Catholic churches will have pet blessings, and everybody's welcome. You don't have to be Catholic. And it's always a lot of fun. The priest will bless your pet, and they usually give you a little medal, for their collar and all. It's very nice. So definitely keep that in mind. You can read it now, but it's also very nice early October reading. Now this one I'm going to save because that's kind of a bonus. What I want to talk about now this is a lot of fun. If you have not read about Cranford, this is very cute. And the reason how I actually discovered this was through the TV series. And I believe this is written by Elizabeth Gaskell. You see, her name is right up here. This is a cute book, too. I like the style of this particular volume that I found in my travels. But I've written here, gentle stories of small-town life in 19th century England. Warm, witty, and heart-tugging. It really is. and how I actually saw some of the mini-series, and that's how I came to learn about that it was based on a book. And I highly recommend it. And the reason what drew me to it was I really like Judi Dench. I love the British series As Time Goes By. That if you've not seen that, look that up, As Time Goes By. I love that series. And I always like whenever I see Judi Dench in something, it catches my eye. I like her very much. And that is a BBC miniseries. It was made in 2007. And also, too, you know, I think that a lot of these you may be able to stream if you have the Amazon for like to get the movies and stuff. I think they have a lot of these BBC miniseries. For me, I have the PBS app, or what you would call it, streaming service, because I really enjoy a lot of the that are and they're shown through the Masterpiece Theater on our PBS station app, you know, whatever you would call it. And so I subscribe to that, and because I love all the mysteries, you know, the Agatha Christie. They just I really feel that the British are so good at mysteries, and I love a good cozy mystery. And but I saw this from Judi Dench, and I said, "Oh, I got to check this out," and it's really lovely. And then they did. It must be very popular. Now, I've not had a chance to see this, but I'm assuming it's equally as wholesome and enjoyable. Is Return to Cranford, and that was made in 2009. So definitely check that out. I think that you will like that. All righty, now let's. It's funny because I was just talking about St. Francis and the patron saint of animals. You won't be surprised that I'm going to recommend this, but if you've not had a chance, what I've got here is All Things Bright and Beautiful, the James Herriot stories about animals. I love his stories. And this is the sequel to All Creatures Great and Small. Anyone, and there's a lot of different books, whether you have All Creatures Great and Small, All Things Bright and Beautiful, I highly recommend. I got very fortunate because I found these, a number of his books at that Recycled Reads and paid like $1 or $2 for them. And these are just wonderful. I never get tired of his stories. And I'll read to you because I've got my notes here. I wrote, heartwarming stories from the Yorkshire vet filled with humor, rustic charm, and cozy seasonal moods. That just is the perfect way to describe it. Now, they have the various shows. I really like the older ones. All Creatures Great and Small is with Christopher Timothy and Robert Hardy. That's the BBC original. That's 1978. And a lot of this might have to do with my age, but things that were made in the 1970s, the 1960s, of course, with my parents, I grew up watching a lot of the movies made in the 1940s. And so on and so forth. But I love a lot of these BBC miniseries that were made in the 70s. I just think they're excellent. They did do one in 2020. I have not seen it, and it's with a Nicholas Ralph and a Samuel West, and it says PBS Masterpiece Series. But I definitely can't go wrong with the 1978 one. And again, you might be able to find a lot of these on YouTube, so definitely be alert to that. But I do want to mention, this is talking about books for children. This is a book that, and I think I might mention this one, I can't remember exactly when I talked about homeschooling Ben and the books we used for our read-alouds, but this James Herriot, Treasury for Children, this is such a wonderful book, and all they've done is just made the stories, it's still with the same wonderful warm tone. You can't go wrong, and they have beautiful illustrations. Look at this, I want to show you this. I think beautiful, beautiful illustrations throughout the whole book. Almost every page has illustrations. Just, look at this, so adorable. These pups. And they're just written in a way, that make them very approachable for children. And one of our favorite stories, I think it might even be the first one, is the most, I have to say, it's probably, I've even got the mark there. If you've not read this one to a child, I highly recommend it. Only One Wolf. This is such a heartfelt story about I can't remember if the dogs are boys or girls, or I don't even know if it's mentioned, but it's almost like comparing the love of like really close siblings. And it's absolutely adorable, the love between just the best friends of these two dogs. It's really a beautiful story. So I highly recommend that if you want to read, you want to do like read-alouds to children. Now, the other books that I want to mention are one that I have not read yet, which we'll talk about in a minute, and one this is kind of a bonus. I think in my list I wrote this as a bonus. This is a more recently written book, but this is so good. And I will say that Hallmark did turn this into a movie, but in that case, the book is much better than the Hallmark movie. This book is so good. This is called Wish You Well, and it's by David Baldacci. You may know him as writing, these political thrillers and intrigue and action and all of that. But every once in a while, he will write something like Wish You Well. And I think this, not based on his life per se, but he may have had some background. We'll read the jacket. He may have grown up in Virginia. I'm not 100% sure, but this was a book. My father was a big fan of David Baldacci. He would read all his books. So when this came out, he just, of course, picked it up and read it, thinking, okay, maybe this is a thriller, who knows? But after he finished it, he passed it on to us. And he said, this is such a beautiful book for the whole family. And I would say that this is a beautiful book for the whole family. And I especially liked reading it because it is set in Virginia, I believe. But my father-in-law was from West Virginia. But I feel that the area in general and the lifestyle and whatnot was similar. So I felt I got a little glimpse into maybe what it was like for my father-in-law growing up in West Virginia. But let me read you the jacket. But again, Hallmark did make a movie, and it's pretty good, but the book really will resonate, I think, with anyone who reads it. Wish You Well is the story of Louisa May Cardinal. And let me just say, I love this kid. She is just a beautiful, wonderful child. Is the story of Louisa May Cardinal, a precocious 12-year-old girl living in the hectic New York City of 1940. With her acclaimed but sadly underpaid writer father, her compassionate mother, and her timid younger brother, Oz. You're going to love him too. For Lou, Louisa uses the nickname Lou. For Lou, her family's financial struggles are invisible to her. Instead, she is a daughter who idolizes her father and is in love with the art of storytelling. Then, in a single terrifying moment, Lou's life is changed forever, and she and Oz are on a train rolling away from New York and down into the mountains of Virginia. There, Lou's mother will begin a long, slow struggle between life and death. And there, Lou and Oz will be raised by their remarkable great-grandmother, Louisa, Lou's namesake. Suddenly, a girl finds herself coming of age in a landscape that could not be more foreign to her. Or her grandmother's, could not be more foreign to her. On her great-grandmother's farm, on the land her father loved and wrote about, Lou finds her first true friend, learns lessons in loyalty, tragedy, and redemption, and experiences adventures tragic, comic, and audacious. When a dark, destructive force encroaches on their new home, Lou and her brother are caught up in another struggle, a struggle for justice and survival that will be played out in a crowded Virginia courtroom. In Wish You Well, David Baldacci has written a tale laced with touching passages evoking the charms of rural Virginia, imbued with graceful humor and enriched by unforgettable characters. They really are unforgettable characters. I love this book. The novel is a heart-wrenching yet triumphant story, and yes, it's a triumphant story, about family and adversity from times past that resounds forcefully today. Wish You Well is a breathtakingly beautiful achievement from an author who has the power to make us feel, to make us care, and to make us believe in the great and little miracles that can change lives or save them. This is such a good book. I'm telling you, I could just go on and on and on about it. If of all these books you just read one book this fall, read this, Wish You Well. You'll never forget it. It's so well written, it's so beautiful, and the story is fantastic. It's quite an adventure, and you're going to fall in love with Lou and her little brother Oz. Alrighty, now I just wanted to mention to you before we go on to that, I've also got some movies here that I want to share with you that I feel are perfect for watching this time of year. And they don't necessarily have book tie-ins and all of that. They're just movies, but I want to share those with you. And maybe you can tell me in the comments if you know that it has a book tie-in. I'm not sure, but I wanted to share these. These are some of my favorite movies for this time of year, and I wanted to share them with you. But this is a book. Now, I have not read this. This is called The 13th Tale by Diane Setterfield. And I had found this, and I think, as I said, I think we paid $1 or $2. I had found this, I believe, at Recycled Reads, and it just kind of intrigued me. I do need to, before I give you a heartfelt but resounding recommendation, I think that I'll go over and check it out on Goodreads. But I just wanted to read this to you because it kind of intrigued me as to what exactly is going on in this story. So I'm curious, but maybe I won't read you the whole jacket, but it's basically about a woman. She's very old and she wants to kind of tell her tale. And her tale is this 13th tale. I don't know if she was the 13th child or what this dives into. but she gets this young writer to share her story with. And as this old woman is sharing her story, the young writer feels there are a lot of parallels to her own story. So a little mystery, a little intrigue, and where does that all take us? Where does that all end? So, but when I do the blog post, I'll tell you a little bit more about this after. I'll go check it out on Goodreads. But as I said, I think it was like $1. And when I read the jacket, I said, oh, this is intriguing. I wonder what it's all about. So I just wanted to share that with you, and I'll give you a little more information over on the blog. But again, you know, boy, Goodreads is such a wonderful resource for all of this. Any book I share with you, any book you see at the bookstore, anything you see at a used bookstore, whatever the case may be, I'll have my phone with me, and I have the Goodreads app on my phone, and I'll just hit that, and I'll type in the book, and then I can read all about, you know, if it's something that I feel would interest me. So definitely worth looking into. Okay, some wonderful movies for watching in the autumn, this fall on a cool evening, and maybe depending on how much of a movie buff you are or not, many of these you may have already seen, but I'm telling you, I have seen all of these more than once. These always deserve revisiting. The first one is the original Ghost, not the TV series, but the movie, The Ghost and Mrs. Muir. This is 1947, Gene Tierney, love her, right? You know, if you're familiar with Gene Tierney, I just love her. And Rex Harrison, of course, perfect as the Ghost. And what I'll just share with you, I just made like a sentence or two to just fill you in case you're not familiar with this. But this is a tender, romantic ghost story filled with longing and charm, timeless and hauntingly beautiful. I love this movie. It really is great. And then Portrait of Jenny, 1948, Jennifer Jones, another one, love her, and Joseph Cotten. Somebody recommended this to me. I had actually never seen The Portrait of Jenny. And so that really surprised me because I've seen so many movies from the 1940s. I hadn't even heard of it. And I watched it. It was on YouTube. And it's black and white, and it's perfect for this time of year. There's a lot of fog and rain and whatnot. But it's a really unusual movie. And what did I write? I wrote a mysterious, yes, it's very mysterious who this Jenny is. A mysterious atmospheric romance that blends time. Yeah, there's like I like time travel type books and movies. And this is, it's an interesting play on time. I don't want to give too much away. Not so much time travel, but an interesting play on how time flows. It blends time, art, and destiny. Perfect for a candlelit evening. Yes, this is really wonderful. And that's 1948. Then 1944, if you have not seen Laura or heard the musical score, you can go right now to YouTube and type in musical score for the movie Laura, 1948. I love the music to this movie, and many people do. And it's with, again, a wonderful favorite, Gene Tierney, and Dana Andrews. Dana Andrews, if you're not familiar, it's a male actor. He is terrific. He plays a police detective, and it's very suspenseful. It's a suspenseful mystery wrapped in intrigue with romance and an unforgettable dreamy score. I put that in because the music is just, it's terrific. Then, this next movie, 1955, with Jane Wyman and Rock Hudson, All That Heaven Allows. Okay. I absolutely love this. I say that so much. I love so many movies. I don't have this because it's something I'm going to share with you at a different time of year, but my all-time favorite movie is Inn of the Sixth Happiness, and I've shared this with you all before. with Ingrid Bergman. It doesn't get better than that. That movie is so good. And I'll definitely share that on my list, in terms of what's a good season to watch that. But All That Heaven Allows with Rock Hudson, and then there's another one with Rock Hudson, but I'm going to share that one. I'll tell you now. But I think it's a better summer movie, Magnificent Obsession. Boy, the two of those movies, this and that, oh, I just love them. But All That Heaven Allows, I love, is because of those who've been with me for a while, you know that I'm a lot older than my husband. We have 10 years between us. He's 10 years younger than me. And All That Heaven Allows is about an older woman and a younger man. And it's just very touching. And, today nobody even pays any mind to that. But in 1955, there were a few, what would you say, people looking a little askance about an older woman marrying a younger man. But Jane Wyman and Rock Hudson do such a good job in this movie, and it's really wonderful. I just love it. Then also, again, this is why, I was originally planning October to share this with you, but still you can watch this any time of year. The next movie I'm going to share with you, but I'm just going to take a sip of this for a minute. I have my tea in here. Do you like Earl Grey tea? I love Earl Grey. That's good. But it's a little bit of a spooky movie. But this is what I love about the 1940s, the movies made in the 1940s. It's not disturbing. It's not scary. It's the innuendo of ghosts and mystery, and I love that. And I actually think that they had such skill, such art at making these types of movies in the 1940s versus today, when they're just gross and disturbing and everything's out on the table. There's no mystery. It's just terrifying, and it disappoints me terribly. And that's why I wanted to start this series, to share things with you that are more wholesome and more enjoyable. And so I hope you'll appreciate that. And you have to let me know in the comments. Let me know if you like the idea. I normally always share recipes with you, and we talk about ancestral recipes and traditional cooking and all of that. But I thought that this might be a fun series to do, just throughout the seasons. And let me know if you like the idea of me recommending. I know in the past, when I've not really done this except for that, the one where we talked about the homeschooling books, but when I shared some lists of things that I like to read just on the community page on YouTube, you really enjoyed that, and you were asking me for more. And so I thought, why not? Let's start a series, and let's really talk about this, in a video format. But anyways, again, the rabbit trails. The movie that I wanted to share with you was The Uninvited. It was made in 1944 with Ray Milland and Ruth Hussey. Have you seen this? This is such a good. I love the cottages and the houses by the sea or in the country, and the scenery is always so magnificent, and the fashions, the way they dressed, just everything about the 1940s movies. I just love them. And what I wrote here was gorgeously atmospheric. This is it really is. A gorgeously atmospheric ghost story that mixes mystery, suspense, and romance. And I said a classic for autumn nights. It really is. Also, too, I'll share this another time, but if you want a very atmospheric, and you could watch it, I feel it could be a good fall movie, but I tend to think of it more for the spring, is The Enchanted Cottage. I think it was also done in the 1940s. that's a wonderful one too, in terms of the scenery and the atmosphere. But The Uninvited, and it's, I remember watching it with, gosh, I'm trying to think, I wasn't very old. I would have been watching it with my parents, and it was funny because my father, this was back when you got the newspaper and the TV shows were listed in the newspaper. And in cold, rainy Saturdays, I grew up in New York, and on cold, rainy or snowy Saturdays, my father would look for if there was a nice movie on in the afternoon that we could watch together. And I would remember that if it were some sort of 1940s ghost story like The Uninvited, and he would shake the paper and he'd be like, I don't know, maybe this is too scary for you. And I'd say, no, I want to see it, And it reminds me. And The Uninvited was one of the ones we watched, It's probably like middle school. And it reminded me of Benjamin when he was a little boy. It was around Halloween time, And then today, sometimes the problem is, even like middle school, elementary kids, they'll be watching these really scary movies that I don't think is appropriate for young children. And I didn't want Benjamin, to be scared and have nightmares and whatnot. And it was funny because he said, but he was really, I want to see. I showed him the very original Frankenstein with Boris Karloff. And we turned the couch around to make like a little fort. I think we were watching it on the iPad, and our other dog, Obi, was alive, and all three of us were just all smushed together in this little corner of the couch with the iPad. And we turned around, we made like a little fort, and we watched that, and it was very cute. And he was old enough, to have fun with it and appreciate it, and, didn't give him nightmares or anything like that. And but it was so cute because as we were watching it, he said, now this is what I'm talking about. It was very cute. He was very happy to watch it. But I put The Uninvited kind of in that category. But like older middle school, to early high school, I think young people will really enjoy it, especially, and maybe girls, because it's got a nice romance to it. And then I just wanted to throw this out to you. I have listed autumn TV shows, but it's not. Really, these are TV shows you can watch whenever you want. But if you find certain episodes that may be set in the fall, they can be very charming. And this isn't going to, I feel pretty much everybody, for the most part, will be familiar with this, but one of my favorite TV shows is Murder, She Wrote. I love those cozy mysteries. And when I find ones that are, set in the fall, up there in Cabot Cove, they never disappoint me. That's what I wrote. Classic cozy mysteries with Jessica Fletcher, it's the character. Autumn evenings in Cabot Cove never disappoint. How true. And then, of course, Little House on the Prairie. Benjamin and I always enjoyed watching that. And we would find certain episodes. This is back when I think I actually had everything on, I had the VHS set that I had found at Half Price Books or something. And we would find ones that, were particular seasons and whatnot. So, but that's, you can find so many of these are shown on YouTube today and whatnot. But I hope that you enjoyed this. And if you'd like to see the video where I talk about some of the books we read in homeschooling, as well as other books like cookbooks and whatnot that I've found in my travels over the years at used bookstores, be sure to click on this video over here, where I'll have a curated playlist of all of those videos, so you can enjoy those. And I'll see you over there in my Texas Hill Country Kitchen. Love and God bless.